Serving on jury duty, we want to get it right, right? We want to be able to tell who is telling the truth and who is lying. And how can we get to the truth regarding the case that we're assigned to? How can we get to the facts of the case? Well, everybody talks about evidence, okay? The evidence is going to point you to the truth of the case. But what we don't talk about, and what is in the Bible a lot, is the different court cases that are in the Bible. There is false evidence that the liar uses to propagate his or her lies. It's a lot in the Bible. And so when we think about the wrongdoer who is doing the wrong, and when they do it, there's always lies attached to that. Whether they're creating the lies or they're believing lies. And so they have gotten away with whatever they're doing, and they don't want to pay the consequences for ruining somebody else's life. So they're going to use lies to get out the consequences. They want to act the way they want to act without the consequences being paid, and they use lies to do that. And the way they use lies is they will tamper with the evidence. They will twist the evidence in their favor. Maybe it's like true evidence in the case, but they twist it in their favor. They can do this by having false witnesses, eyewitnesses to this account. They can do this by falsifying documents. They can do this by just evidence in general, just twisting it in their favor. And so when you really think about it, it makes sense, right? I mean, the liar is good at what he or she is doing. And they use that false evidence to make their lies believable. When you see it, you're like, how could I think anything else, right? And so that's not to say that every single piece of evidence in every court case is false evidence. There is evidence in which it's completely truthful. So what court cases are in the Bible that present this evidence as false evidence? Well, I'm going to look at two court cases. The first court case is found in 1 Kings chapter 21. And we're dealing with the prosecution is the government, and the defendant is a civilian. He's a farmer. His name is Naboth. And this government official is going after the reputation of this farmer. And he is concocting a situation in which he has false witnesses, eyewitnesses to this event, that he is making it out to that he's done this unethical thing. And he's being accused of talking ill about this government official and talking ill about God. And so we've got witnesses, false witnesses that are in on this premeditation by this government official, and this lands this farmer in court. And so if the defendant's attorney were to do research, they would actually find a paper trail, okay? And the paper trail would be, you would think it would be the truth, right? It's proof that this whole situation that this government official concocted, it's in print. But the thing is, if you got to that paper trail was falsified. It was signed by that government official. It was sealed, had his seal by that government official. But the government official didn't have anything to do with this whole plan, this whole premeditation of getting this farmer into trouble. Who the true wrongdoer was a person who had motive and opportunity, a person who had access to this government official's signature, paper, seal. And this was his wife, the government official's wife. Why would she do this? Well, her husband was pouting because he couldn't get his way. You see, this government official, he was used to getting his way. When he would ask for something, it was always a yes. But this time, it was a no. And this government official and his wife were not the type of people to accept a no from anybody, especially from a farmer. And so this government official, King Ahab, knew nothing about what his wife had done behind his back. She was going to turn that no into yes, and she didn't care whose reputation she was ruining, whose lives she was ruining in the process. Because, you see, that government official wanted to buy property from this farmer, and this farmer said no. And so she concocted this whole plan and falsified documents to get this plan going. That was the court case in 1 Kings chapter 21. We're going to look at another situation in which documents are or evidence is being tampered with. Court case number 2 in Genesis chapter 39. Now, this was a situation in which a woman was falsely accusing the defendant of raping her. This was a man who worked for her, okay? And she had evidence to make her story very believable. She had an article of his clothing, right? I mean, when you see this, you're like, well, how could this man, his name was Joseph, not try to rape this woman or rape this woman? There's evidence, right? But when you study this court case, you're going to see that this woman concocted these lies. She had this false evidence that made her lies like truth. What had really happened was that this woman was another woman who could not take no from anybody. She was this guy's boss, and she was seducing him day after day. She wanted to have sex with him, and he turned her down time after time after time. And so she wasn't going to have it. Nobody says no to her. And so she premeditates this whole situation in which she is alone in the house with her worker, and she seduces him. And how she gets his article of clothing, his coat, is he gets out of there as quick as he possibly can. And that's how she gets it. That's the truth. And so in both of those situations, we can see how the liar is twisting the evidence to make their lies very believable. You look at this evidence, I mean, how can it not be? It is that believable. And so, how can we discern as jurors when evidence is being presented? Is this true evidence? Like the whole thing, the way it's presented, everything about it's 100% truth? Or this evidence, is it twisted? Is it been falsified to make those lies believable? Well, class session number 3, we're going to look at how we can get to the truth of the case so that we make the right judgment in this court case. Click on the next session above.